Hello, hello, hello. Today we're going to look at the Jeniffer and James kit and how to use it. This video is divided into many timestamps, so check out the description to see those. So before we do anything, we just need to make sure our Blender is installed. So let's just go on blender.org. You can see currently we have 2.93 version. You would have maybe a newer one if you're watching this in the future. So we're currently using 2.93. Maybe you're using 3.0 or anything else. It should still work. Just we'll update it in case needed. But just make sure you're not using anything older than this version. So just go on blender.org under downloads and just download and install the latest version. So just do that and get back to the video. So once you install Blender, this should be the default view you see. We'll just go in the top left corner and open up the file we installed. So in my case, it's called Jeniffer and James tutorial, but in your case, it will be simply called Jeniffer and James. So just open up your file. Give it a second to load. Usually it takes about 10-15 seconds. And it seems to be loaded. What we're going to do is switch between characters. In the top right in the menu, simply enable Viewport, so the computer icon and the camera icon, and disable the James computer icon and camera icon. And make sure you go to show Jeniffer layout. It just changes the colors, so it's best you go there. So that's how you switch between characters. Now we're just going to go through some quick navigations in the viewport. The easy ones are zoom. You can zoom in and out by left clicking on this and just dragging your mouse back and forth. To drag the camera, you can just always just press that. Or some shortcuts would be using your mouse wheel to scroll, pressing Alt and Shift at the same time to drag, and left click with your mouse, then you can drag around. Now you can just, for example, if you want to break the camera view, simply press Alt and you won't see the camera view. You can rotate around the character and see him from other angles. So you would, for example, if you want to see the shoe, you would zoom in with your mouse, Alt and Shift, drag down, and you can see the shoe in close-up. And if you just want to go back to the camera, press 0 on the numpad. I will blend it in editing where that is, but just press 0 on the numpad and it's just gonna go back to the camera view. So Alt to break the camera, rotate around, do whatever, and just left click to rotate and Alt at the same time. And just press 0, you're back in the camera view. Now that we know how to use a viewport and we know how to switch between characters, the next thing we're gonna do is obviously changing some colors. So to change the colors, we go on the left side, we can see the layers. The first one will be hair and the bottom one being shoes. So we'll start off by, let's say, changing the hair. Let's say we like this white. There are many layer color places you can do. Obviously the hex one being the best. You can just copy in hex colors that you like, or for example, you can use the color picker and say you like the color of these jeans. You just press it, hair will change to that color. So for example, if you like this hex color, you just make sure you copy it and then you just go over to the shirt and you can change to that shirt color and you can customize the 3 possible colors of the shirt. So possibilities are endless. Change the jeans and shoes. Basically you can change everything. Now we're just gonna quickly go to the Jeniffer layer and I'll show you how you can do that there as well. Press the computer icon, the camera icon, and disable the James camera icon and the computer icon, and make sure you go to the show Jeniffer layout, because maybe if you move it here it's not gonna work. So just make sure you go to show Jeniffer, and here it's the same thing. You can change the colors, sweater color, let's say we like this red. For example, we want to change the shirt. We can't find the color. You can pick the color picker, bam, we take that and we just copy it over to the dots. Now we don't see the dots because it's the same color. Simply drag it here so it's more fitting to the style. Anyways, I accidentally scrolled. In case you lose the view, just make sure you just scroll back. You should be able to see the surface. Here at the bottom as well, changing shoes, just go down to the shoes. Let's say we like blue and some reddish color. Looks pretty awesome to me. Let's go back to the default view and looks pretty good to me. Now we're coming to the pose section of the video. This will be the hardest part of the tutorial in my opinion. So I have divided this part into two sections. The first section will be using the poses I made on the right here. And in the section of the video, we will create our own custom poses and save them in this library. So let's start with the rig section. Let's go to the viewport. In the default view you have here, make sure you are in the show James section in case you have James. In case you have Jennifer, make sure you're in the show Jennifer section. And here, go on the top right and select show overlay. Now you will be able to see all the layers in the file. And here we can see the rig layers. Let's simply right click on it. And you can see with an orange overlay, that means it's selected. Make sure you don't click the t-shirt or the pants. It's gonna be orange overlay. Just make sure you click on the rig. And now you can see it's overlaid in orange. Now you can go on the right and let's say we want flying neutral. We click on that with our left click and here you place apply pose. This little icon here under the minus. And you can see it goes into that pose. And now you're probably wondering, oh, I can't see his face. I only see the layers. Just go here and make sure you click on show overlay. Now it's going to be disabled and you can still see the character without the rig. Just make sure, keep on changing poses and it's still gonna work. But just make sure you select the layer. In case you don't, let's see, it's not gonna work. You see? Oh, it still works, but just make sure you basically select the layer because it's gonna probably break someday soon. Select that. And similarly for Jennifer, let's just switch over to Jennifer. We have her here. Make sure you go to the show Jennifer section and go again, show layers, select Jennifer, and let's go to standing idea. And you can see it works pretty great. You can obviously then do whatever you want, change the colors and do the poses. So you can see here standing, and in case you go to the sitting pose, you will see a sofa magically appearing. That's the cool part. You can change the color here under simplify on the sofa. You can do whatever color you want. Similarly as here with the clothing, you can customize it pretty cool stuff. Yeah, so basically select the pose you want. Make sure you simply select the rig here and you're in this correct viewport. And do whatever you want, and yeah, select the pose you want and the colors of the clothing you want. And if you want to render, go to the render section of the video. I'll show you how you do that at that part. So before we do anything else, let's just make sure our GPU is enabled. So go to the top left corner under edit, preferences. In the systems tab, you might have it as none. Just make sure you click CUDA and just click save preferences. And that just makes sure that you can render with your GPU. In case you don't have a GPU, the CPU will work fine, just it's a bit slower than the GPU to render stuff. But all right, now we'll get into the exporting / rendering part. So in case you have now chosen the pose you like, so let's say, yeah, we have the happy jumping in the air. We like it. Now we have modified the hair or whatever we wanted to do. We have now modified it. He's looking pretty awesome. Let's just change it to red. Looks awesome. Let's change the jeans to be a little lighter and the shoes we want red. Now we have our little pose selected that we like, and now we want to render it. The first thing you need to make sure is that you have simplify disabled. You can see just make sure simplify is not ticked in. It's basically looks like this. And now you can proceed. Just make sure it's not ticked in. And now simply go to the top left corner and press render image. This will now render the image with our base setup. Could take up to a minute. It's up to the GPU you have, of course, but most of the GPUs should take less than a minute for one of the images. Let's give it some time, and bam, we have it finished. Looking awesome with all our custom colors and our custom little cool textures. Looks great. Let us now simply save it by going to the top left under images and press save as. And now select the folder you want to save it and simply press save. I'll name it render test render 01. Now we press save as image and we have it saved. In case you did not like that light setup, we gave 3 light setups in this file, so you can test them out. So the thing is, you simply press the camera icon to disable one of the light setups and enable the other one. But make sure you have one of them enabled. Don't enable all 3 of them. It's just going to be very much light, so don't do that. Let's select the light one and simply press the camera icon, or whichever one you wanted to, but only have one at the same time. So we'll have light 1 enabled. Let's press render image, and this light should be a bit more shadows to the face, basically a more realistischer color, I guess. I mean, light. It's gonna have a lot more shadows to the character. And now you can obviously test the other light setup in case you want to, but in case we want to change the resolution, go to the second icon. I guess it's the third icon here. Simply press it, and you can see under the dimensions, it should show you the resolution. You can change it to whatever number you want, but keep in mind it should be a square or whatever. It should not be a square, but you can basically change it. I'll type 4000 times 4000 here. You can see it's looks the same, but keep in mind it's 4000 pixels now, not 2000 pixels. So if we press render, it's just gonna take 2 times longer now to render. So that's something to keep in mind if you want really maximum scale images. That is just gonna simply take a bit longer to render. But if you have the time, you can change to even 10,000 times 10,000 pixel rate, but I'll go back to 2000 by 2000. And if you want to go back to the pose mode, simply press the little character here and it's gonna go back to the pose mode, and you can adjust things as usual. All right, now comes the second part of the pose mode section of the tutorial. This will be where we create our own little custom pose and add it to the library. So the first thing we need to do is select the rig and press tab and go to the pose mode. And now you will notice all the rig layers and you can select them individually. If you can't get to pose mode by pressing tab, just select the rig layer with orange and top left go to pose mode, and now you should be able to right click on the individual things, and now by pressing G I can move it around, and you probably can notice this it's pretty laggy. This is where simplify comes in. You press it and now you can see it does not lag as much, but you need to make sure you do disable simplify at the rendering part. In case you do not watch that part, I do mention that there, but in case you do not watch it, make sure you disable simplify so you can basically have the renders in the highest quality possible. All right, now we can select the individual layers. Let us see how we can move them. So normally you can press N. There are rig layers and there's the location. I will get into rig layers once we do the custom pose. For now, just hide it, and here on the top you can see transformation. Basically you can move everything here by the Y, X and Z locations, and the rotation as well, and scale. Probably don't touch that too much. But yeah, you can basically move everything here, but I do recommend learning the shortcuts. So just press N again to hide it, and I do press G and X if I want to move it on the X axis, G, Z if I want to move it on the Z axis, or simply press R and then the axis you want to rotate it on. So R and Z to rotate it here, R and Y to rotate it like this. So I recommend just using the shortcuts. So before we do create our own custom pose, one error fix or bug fixing you need to remember is that once you're in the pose mode, try not to change the poses. For example, if I select the main cube and I say I want the happy air jump, you will notice it does not work. This is because it copies only the location of this single cube you select. So you need to make sure you first, with right click on nothing, so none of the layers are selected. You can test it by trying to rotate it now. It should not work. So if we have it selected and we press G, it moves. But if we press on nothingness with our right click, it should not have selected anything. And if I press G and R, nothing is selected. And now we can simply go back to the object mode and change our poses like that. So this is the workflow. Just keep that in mind. Please don't select any poses and then copy. Just click on nothing, test it out by pressing G and R. If nothing happens, nothing is selected, and then you can proceed going to object mode and changing the poses like that. Make sure you go into object mode, go to the T pose, and go to the T pose like that. Now we go back to the pose mode, and now we can create our own little custom pose. My idea was the character would stand on one leg and show a peace sign while he's smiling. It's quite random. I do recommend having reference shots from Google or anything else while you create poses on your second screen, but for now we'll just create something random. So let us start. We'll select the main cube and let's just sit him down a bit so he's lower. Use the shortcuts I did in the viewport. So next to the 0 that locks to the camera, there's the nth, and it's gonna help you rotate around the object you selected. Let's move him down a bit. Let's select the leg and let's just make him stand on one leg like this. I'm currently just pressing G and moving around, and now I'm gonna press R and X because I want him to just move on the X axis. Always just go back to the main layout, to the camera view, to just make sure how it looks. We can see that the knee seems weird, so we're just gonna move the knee a bit outwards so it's more natural. And let's just rotate the leg. Currently I'm just pressing R and rotating, but you can also just press R and Y or Z and then just rotate on that axis. The second leg seems pretty weird as well, so I'll just press G and move it outwards a bit. Let us move the arms now. We select the little square here that represents the arm, and let's just move it down. This looks good. Let's just press R and X to rotate the wrist. Oh, R and Z. As you can see, I usually just press the keyboard many times until I find the right axis. So just play around, you will get the idea pretty quick. So here I'm just pressing G again to move it. No particular axis in mind, just moving around. Let's check how it looks in the camera. Looks very weird. I like it. Let's just move it down. Now you can also see the watch being broken. If you disable simplify, you will see it's in the skin. So this is why we added this little cube. Just always go make sure you repair it just by selecting it and just making sure it's outside of the skin. And now you can see it works now. You can see it's still in the skin. So let us go and simplify and just move it back a bit. G and Z like that. Should be fine now. Okay, looks good. Let's take the second arm now. Like this. Rotate it. Oh, rotate it. R and X. Yes, RX finally got it. Let's make him stand like a stop thing. Let's move the elbow so it does not look that weird. Let's look how it looks in the camera. Looks pretty good. Now let's do something to the fingers. Now you can probably see that the fingers only do this one motion, and that's not enough to close it because it's gonna just go into the skin. That looks weird. So this is where we press N and we go to the rig layers. And there's many things we can use here. I won't get into all of them, but we can select the finger details. This will show many more details to the fingers we can use. And now I'm just gonna press R and I can rotate the finger a bit better so it looks more natural. Let's look how it looks in the camera. Oh, it's not straight, so let us rotate it a bit in this bone. Oh, like that. So it follows the arm a bit more. Let us select the thumb, R and Z, and then I press R and Z again. It does the 2 axis. So that's something you just need to play around with. Does that look weird? I think that does not look natural, but we'll just keep going. And let's move the other finger so he shows a peace sign. Let's see how it looks in the camera. Looks very unnatural. Let's move the arm a bit more. How does that look? Still pretty weird. That's something you just need to play around with. If you want a really good pose, it can take some time to do. You can ignore, actually, you can also ignore the things. These will smoothen out once you click simplify, as you can see. So try to ignore those. This is just so we can create our poses a lot better. Okay, now we have our fingers. Let us do something to the face. With this one, we can move the mouth. And let's open it up a bit and make him be happy. We can actually take the tongue out. Maybe he can take his tongue out a bit. Let's rotate it on the x-axis a bit and stick it out with G. Very weird. I like it. Okay, let's move the eyebrows now. We can select 2 at the same time by pressing Shift. So we select the first 2 and then, oops, try to just press the square. As you can see, I miss it sometimes as well. Shift, right click, Shift, right click, Shift, right click, Shift, right click. I just did press it again and then it should work. And then I just move it on the y-axis a bit. Then I select this one and I press it again and I move it a bit so it's straight. Looks very, very weird. I love it. Now let's move the head here. Let's rotate it a bit. Let's rotate the torso a bit as well, and let's rotate this as well, the hips. Let's see how it looks in the camera. Pressing num 0 on num lock. This looks very weird. I love it. Now it comes. Now we want to save this awesome looking pose. Very awesome looking. Just press N again to hide the rig layers and everything. This is the most important part. You need to make sure you do this correctly. You must remain into the pose mode, so make sure you are in the pose mode. And by pressing A, you can see we select everything. Make sure you right click into nothingness and nothing is selected. So you can see if I press G, nothing moves. Make sure you do that before we go on to saving the pose, because if you don't, it's gonna mess up a bit. So make sure you press A or whatever. Just make sure you can actually just select the chest and just make sure you have nothing selected while you do this. So if I press G or R, none of the layers are moving. So now let's just go to the right and we go on pose library, add a pose, and we click it, add new, and you can see it's saved here. So make sure you always rename them quickly so you don't forget. So let's call this peace, or how you write peace sign while standing on one leg. And now there we have that saved. So let's just go to the object mode now, select the rig, and let's cycle through one of our poses. We are at the walking happy, standing thinking, and now let us go to the peace sign while standing on one leg. Bam. And now you have added your own little custom pose where you can, as usual, change the colors and do whatever you want. Don't forget to save, because if you don't save, it's not going to save the pose. So now that if you want to render it, just go to the render section and make sure you disable simplify. The thing is, we added to the rig is the rotate camera circle. Simply press it with your right click and press R and Z, and you can rotate around the character and do some cool stuff, maybe some more other angles you want to see, or just press space and type walk navigation. And let's say we like this now. And we just simply press left click and render the image. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you have any questions, just contact me on my email or my Discord. I'll link both of them in the description of the video. So yeah, just shoot me an email in case you find any bugs, and hope you enjoy this kit and you can create some awesome stuff. Bye.